Pete, how are you?
Really, really well. How are you, Tim?
Yes, I'm good. Just getting all my shit together after the school run, as I'm sure you've done as well. And
Yes, and
yes,
especially in
look,
the rain, it's a real joy
does it
when
take
it
like an
comes.
extra 20 minutes your end? As soon
Um,
as it starts raining, it's an extra 20 minutes straight
it
there.
is it is that, and you're ending up with everybody being in a slight grumpy mood. You're having
Yeah.
yes, it's that life, and then you have to come back, right, and position again after you
Yes.
just
Yeah.
had a near bar fight on a car park
Yeah.
on a school run
Yes.
in a primary school. Yeah,
Yeah. They're savage, especially the
savage.
mums.
That's the right word.
The
Yes.
the mums in the 4x4s that park on the path and take up all. Yeah, I've thankfully. It's mine's not. Yeah, we've moved on from primary school, so we're doing secondary school. So it's far less um, territory trying to be claimed by people in 4x4s.
Yes. I think you've hit a milestone there. Our
Yeah,
oldest one, my boy, he's going now to secondary school from September,
yeah,
and they stipulate that he has to go in by himself. It's
really,
part of them being autonomous and kind of
yeah.
developing their own independence. And that's quite something. He's right now on sunny days. He takes our girl to school, so
Okay,
that's actually pretty good. But when it rains, you don't want to have them, being
yeah,
already all wet and looking like a cat dragged in by the rain.
yeah, yeah. Sadly, my daughter's high school don't stipulate any such thing, and while I'm all for her getting herself to school and back, I was superseded by my wife and my daughter, who said, "No, you can just
You just continue
take.
driving it, yeah.
You got to take her in. You can take her in."
Yeah, you're a
But
great driver at that, yeah.
it's about 2 miles away, and it would be 2 buses and a bit of a walk for her. So
That's a
I
big
can,
that's a big trip.
yeah. But we are moving. We're moving closer to the school, literally right next door to it, so she can walk from May.
Oh, amazing, amazing. And that
So
means
that's cool.
more time to play the guitar.
I know. Yes. So, what have you been up to? What's going on?
Okay, what have I been up to? You know what? I don't know if you found this, but almost like after COVID, somebody sped up the clocks.
Yeah.
I thought in or during COVID, I thought, okay, maybe I had it, maybe I had my ticket, I had a good run, and that kind of was it. So I made my peace with it and established out of this a little project which was called Roth Academy. You can still see the signs there in the back
Yeah.
burning, which was not dissimilar to your beautiful podcast, where we just tried to connect players with players.
Yeah.
And I know you know about this, and that's how we got talking.
Yeah.
And that became a thing for a little while and got us going, got us through COVID, and got us through no gigging. The instrument or the connection with the music is my therapy.
Yeah.
I'm a more balanced person. I'm a better person when I play than when I'm not. So that's the long of the short. The Roth Academy did that, but ultimately got to a point where after COVID, the live playing just picked up in a really wonderful way again, in a way I didn't foresee.
Okay.
And so I ended up playing some beautiful jazz gigs, some of them with just small duo stuff. I've started playing with an old tutor of mine called Stefan Rettenbach,
Oh, I know Stefan.
who is just an enormous musician. I always play with Nick Meier together. We've had little duos and things for over the years, and done a record together as well, and done a little bit of bigger gigs together. And we do a masterclass series, players, different eras, different types of music styles, different types of guitar playing, or we take apart a composer, something like this, and it's extremely rewarding. And then also, as we said at the beginning, playing with this wonderful woman at the moment called Keely Smith.
Yeah.
And she's been on ITV, and I think Starstruck was the program she was on, and she did really well out of this. She's an enormous talent, and
Wow.
she does like a Streisand
Yeah.
show, basically. So it's a tribute show. That's basically what it is. But it's probably one of the all-round best projects I've ever been involved in.
Wow, that's cool.
Everybody on stage, is just really nice. There's no politics, and everybody's a monster musician and enjoys the space they're in and owns that space. And that's been great fun. So it's all of this, and then having kids, as you know, that's the other, standing on the rugby pitch and as a German telling them how to throw a ball properly. even though I have no idea how it all works.
Yeah.
Run
How's
forward, run
yeah.
backward.
How's because I know Dave's on keyboards for the Barbara Streisand gig.
Yes, Dave Clement Smith.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I've had him on a few gigs. He's great to play with.
He is a wonderful musician. I mean, he's say the highest praise of Dave. Apart from being a super sound guy, he is a scary player.
Yeah.
Yeah, he really does, and he has the hardest gig on that, the hardest job on that gig, because a lot of it is piano vocals led, and it's all on cans. So if there's discrepancies between what goes on stage to what goes on in our cans, he has to make up for that somehow. And then he makes a sort of he just makes sure. So those are cool guys to play with.
Cool. What are the guitar parts like for Streisand?
Yeah, so overall they are really varied, and that's what I love about it. So you start off with some show tunes. There's some nylon string guitar parts on there. It's a beautiful tune called Evergreen, which is sort of guitar led, and I start this off, and it's a beautiful melody. And some of the challenges in there were to combine two guitar parts sometimes. So you have two guitars on the record, and you're the only guitarist on the gig. So you have to find a part where that still sounds like the record, but it's also playable. So those were some of the bits. A nylon string is on there. There's a lot of jazz guitar on there, which I love. Sort of big bandy type of stuff. And then there's all the pop stuff. You know, she did things with Barry Gibbs, and we have all of those type of sort of 80s guitar parts, a lot of sparkly chorus, and all of this. It lets my inner child out. It allows me to do stuff. You'd be booed off any other gig.
Yeah.
And there, it's just the right thing. Pressing your chorus CE5.
Yeah.
And giving it a sparkly sort of A9.
Lovely. Lovely.
Right, yeah. No other place, right? There's nowhere else you could do that. Yeah.
Yeah, or maybe a Bon Jovi show.
Maybe a Bon Jovi show. That's right. Yes. And so I love it. I also get the banjo out on one of the tunes. I'm constantly taking the Mickey out. I'm being taken the Mickey out by my band.
How do you? How do you find playing banjo? Because it's something that's always kind of on my radar. It's like I just haven't got around to buying one.
Me neither. So my wife's granddad was a banjo player. So at one point, her brother arrived. My wife is South African. Her brother arrived with the banjo and says, "Look, do you fancy playing on it?" And so I took it, and it was 2 months later I got the show, and first time somebody asked me to play the banjo.
All right.
And what I do is it's a 5-string banjo. I play 4 strings, and I tune them like the high 4 strings of the guitar.
Of course you do, because that's what everybody does.
And that's what I do. So I don't play any open tunings. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, Bella Fleck wouldn't call me for a gig anytime soon.
Yeah.
He wouldn't go and say, "Look, I'm hearing you're the other guy." No.
All right. Okay. Well, I mean, that sounds like a fun show. I mean, I think playing with great players, a relaxed atmosphere, good tunes. I think that's what everybody aspires to. I don't think people have. I think I am just sick of playing with people who are very egotistical and very just kind of assholes, really.
That is a label that is very well deserved by some people. I mean, they earn it. I made a conscientious decision a few years back when I had kids to be very careful from now on what I say yes and no to. And I also made a conscientious decision who I'm playing with, because at the end of the day, this was my breadwinner, so I had to say yes to a lot of things. But then I did a lot of education stuff, and that became my main breadwinner. And this one became a bit more of a choice.
Yeah.
And I took that choice and the responsibility that came with that choice, not to say yes to absolutely everything. And that weeded out a lot of what you're saying, having to play with people. But you're on a gig, and it's a wonderful gig. It's a big stage. People really don't want to be there. And you don't understand why, and they're just trying to find all the reasons why this is not a good gig, or all the reasons why, this is a little bit beneath them. And I understand some of the reasoning behind it. I understand that sometimes it's a defense mechanism. Sometimes it's just basically not sure how to behave in social situations. A lot of musicians come from all walks of life, and I'm aware of this. They have different mindsets, and a lot of what we're doing happens at home, right, where we spend hours and hours in solitary trying to develop something that somehow started its life in our head as an idea, and we put this into music, and then we bring this outwards to an audience and hope that they understand our intricate thought process in all of this. And the truth of it is, often, it's not as simple as that. The translation often is tricky. And so you meet, with people who are living in that space, and they're not always able to communicate that well where they're at, with their head. And then you get politics, I think, out of that quite a fair bit, where they're unhappy with this, or couldn't park my car. But what they're really saying is, I'm stressed out about a gig, or I'm not where I am in life, where I need to be, and I don't know quite how to get there. And I'm now somehow projecting this onto this scenario here, even though that's the bit that's good, right? I am out, I am playing. I've seen that a lot, and I think that's I don't know. That's just life, and I've done it. I've certainly done it, and you have to sort of look in the mirror and take yourself to court and go, okay, is that are you right here, or are you just being a bit on the wrong side of all of this?
Yeah, I mean, do you think like post-COVID, it's like people's mental health and how they approach gigs and their attitude towards it has changed? Have you seen a change in people?
Big appreciation for anybody who stayed in the game or could afford to go back into that game. And there was also a huge loss of some people who couldn't. And very often that was nobody's fault, nobody's choice, nothing to do with talent. I think that was to do with luck. Yeah. Some of us, Roth Academy started 2 years or 3 years before COVID. And so we're just lucky to do it, and lucky to keep us afloat. That's if I would have done what I really sort of thought when I left teaching, really, where I thought, okay, I'm going to go and do some more live playing, and I kind of get into all of this, and this would have taken off, which it hadn't. That's why Roth Academy had more time for it. It was just one of those things where that didn't really come my way, or work like this didn't come my way at the time. I did not really, I would have probably not survived this in the same way I did now, and I would have had to think about this very differently. So there was that, and I think for the first 6 months to a year, certainly everybody you meet is like a big hug, and kind of, man, it's great to see you again, it's great to play again. You listen to people really carefully, and you really appreciate it. Yeah. But I do believe that wears off. Yes. It's like, when you come back together with your ex, you get a grace period. Yeah. And it's never a good idea, and you realize that after a while it's the same issues, and you're still the same people navigating the same environment. Yeah. I agree. I think the first 6 months to a year was quite glorious being back on stage, but it did seem to it just sort of filtered back to the way it was. I thought maybe there would be like a hard reset, and everyone would kind of come back with a bit more of a longevity for the appreciation of going out and playing. But there is, I think it's kind of crept back in now, where there's that kind of cynical side to people, and that snidey, back chat, bitchy kind of attitude that seems to be quite prevalent with a lot of players. Yes, it is. Again, not a lot of people, they're not in that industry, really appreciate this, but it is quite a dog-eat-dog world, because at the end of the day, you're competing for the same spots. Yeah. And very often it's like this sort of political shifting yourself into the right direction in order to make the next move, or maybe even getting your mate or somebody else to take a job somebody else has at the moment, in order for you to then, all of this, you get this. I made a conscientious decision a little while back, and I don't know if you came to a similar conclusion at some point, to simply don't do politics. Yeah. If I hear people talking about something that want to get me involved, I politely just see myself out of the room. And then I want to make my own decisions, and I don't want to be influenced by other people's ideas. I absolutely hate being put in front of other people's problems. I don't want to carry their crap.
Yeah, right? I've got my own, thank you.
Exactly. Yeah. And actually, often I'm in no position to do anything, or often even disagree. And then you're in this situation where then you have to take sides. So I'd rather kind of go and say, no, I'm here to play music and do my job as good as I can. I'm also employed by somebody, so I've got to honor whatever that means, whatever engagement that is. And then that's what I want to do first and foremost. And then after that, I want to drive home in the car and thinking, great day. I played my guitar today. I earned some money doing the thing I love, and I practiced all my life. This is a good day. And I just want to tick that. And this is a good day. I love this. And I come home and I'm happy. I'm happy, seeing my kids, and I'm a happy person generally. And so I try to keep in that, in that bubble, which sometimes means, see, stuff goes on, I just walk away. I don't know if you had to have situations where you find mechanisms to kind of make this work for you.
I mean, it's the same kind of thing. I mean, doing a lot of sort of depth gigs, I think you're not quite privy to all the politics that goes on, but certainly when it does go on, same thing. I'm not really interested. I'm not here to take sides, and it's usually so you're turning up, you're doing a depth gig for somebody, you've never met the band, and they'll start, they might start bitching about the person they had on last week, and you think, I actually know that person, I'm a good friend of his. I'm not getting involved. And I just think it's best to stay out of it. I think I've just reached the age now where I don't want to. Like I said, I don't want to carry anyone else's shit because I've got my own. Yeah.
Did you feel kids do that a little bit? They give you a bit of perspective?
So when I first had children, the first, I think, 4 years, I was a very heavy drinker. So I didn't really have any perspective other than when am I going to drink next. So after I got sober, I think everything sort of came into perspective then. We're having children, having, a new lease of life, having almost fucking killed myself. So, I got I got almost like a brand new set of glasses. So, life looked very different. But I think the culmination of having kids and getting sober, getting my shit back together, getting life back on track, certainly puts everything in perspective. And arguing about people that bring the wrong snare drum or they brought the wrong guitar, I'm like, it's just not really. It's not even on my radar. I think we could think of bigger things bigger problems.
Tim, what a story! Great. I mean, fair play to you. That is not easy. And you're quite right. I think we can all agree, it's very easy to kind of look outwards, and I can very easily point you out, looking out of my window, who I think is a good driver and a bad driver.
Yeah,
it's so hard to look at our own abilities and our own skills, and then consistently wanting to work on them.
Yeah.
With realizing we simply never can be a finished product if we're a thinking human being.
Yeah.
And with that come mistakes, where we realize, hang on, I do something here that's actually not as good as it could be. And then as you demonstrated in an amazing way, in an inspiring way, then you make decisions based on what you find for the better. And that takes I think it takes a massive human being to do that. And if we all would be just 5% of that, I think the world would be quite a good place. Every now and then, every time we look at somebody and thinking, I don't like what you're doing, quickly have a little inwards reflection going, hang on a second, do I have a part in this?
Yeah, that's a big thing. What's my part in this, and where can I make improvements?
Yes. Yeah. Because that is what this is, isn't it, really? This is what the playing is.
That's what I was going to ask next. I was going to say, so with
bridge it for you nicely. Yeah.
Yes, lovely.
Leave it to me.
Yeah, with the gigs and touring and teaching and kids and family life, what does your practicing look like?
Yeah, so I love practicing. Right, this is true.
Good.
Even though whenever I say this, I have a student of mine in mind. Many years back, maybe 2006, 2007, I was lecturing at a college, and a fantastic bunch of guys, awesome players. Like when you have 30 people in the classroom and like 29 of them kicking your ass and going, "Wow, this is a great year." Yeah. And it was one of those, and he came in. He was really into Matheny, and I really thought he's a really good player. And he came in, really tired, Pete, today, and I'm going, "Oh, have you been up practicing all night?" And his line, it was the best I've ever heard. He goes, "I don't practice, I play." So, yes,
Yeah.
what a
Okay.
put down. But the truth of it is, I love practicing because I like, first and foremost, I love playing the instrument. So I'm
Yeah.
addicted to that. I love the feel of it. I love the guitar, and I love mucking about on it. So the practicing to me is my drawing board, where I do all the stuff I'm really rubbish at, or the things where I determine, okay, I'm crap at it, and I need to go and do something. And again, a lot of the times we identify things that might take, we might set off today. You might be thinking, hang on, my time is not quite right, and time is always something I work. I'm thinking, okay, I'm pushing here a bit, I'm doing something, but you're actually setting yourself off on a journey that may be 3 or 5 years from now, till you really settled into an entirely new idea of where you perceive time, because that's what that is, right? And
when you say time, you're talking about rhythmical time or time around you.
Yeah. So all of the above.
Right, okay.
So I always see myself when I talk about time, I talk about the actual time that you're playing in, talking about the tempo you're playing in, because I think different tempis are needing a different approach. Like you can't play fast tunes the same way you play slow tunes. So the slow tunes need the emotions, I guess, very much. The mid-tempo tunes, especially in jazz, you need language for days. And then the up-tempo stuff, it's really, connecting with the rhythm so strongly that you're creating, you should always create your own rhythm, but that you are, that you're still with everybody. You're not falling behind, you're not pushing ahead, because it's at the top end of the technique often. So, and then time also, how you fit within the group. So you might have a drummer that sits right on it, but you might decide you want to feel this slightly behind it. That melody just needs to sit behind ever so slightly. And so feeling time like this, the John Scofield sort of, you're sort of almost dragging the band behind without being out of time, without being in a different thing. And then also sometimes tunes need to speed up. When you play excitingly something, I don't think there's anything wrong with you pushing, or as guitarists do, by sitting right on top of the beat and right on top of the time, if you know how to pull yourself back again.
Yeah.
And so that's a lot what I'm practicing. So to answer your question, with all the kids, with everything, mornings right now, that's my practice time.
Oh, I'm sorry, I've interrupted you.
No, not at all. It's for all the right reasons. So I would sit down, and I would very often I start off doing something just by myself, just me playing, trying to create good time. So I might do something. I don't know if you can hear this. Can you hear that?
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I might do a blues. Yeah, and I might do, okay, let's see if I can do a jazz blues. Something like that. Yeah, so I go through a chorus. I try to play harmony, maybe try to connect the chords in a really nice way. Something like this. Making sure I watch my my time, I watch my tone, making sure I play phrases, all of those sort of things. So I'm getting into that musician's mindset before I even start practicing. What I try to avoid these days is to sit down and do. I try to avoid running up and down scales, because I found in the past, if I practice running down up in scales, I play running up and down scales. So I'm trying these days deliberately, anything I do after I've understood where the layout is, I try to then break it into musical fragments, because I think that's my weakest point in my playing, is to tell consistently good stories. So I'm trying really, really hard to work on this all the time, and then trying to create good time within that. So somebody else could link into this and feel, if I play melody or if I play rhythm, you could feel my time. Yeah. And that's something I do a lot. More than anything.
Okay. When you mentioned weaknesses, do you prefer to work? Do you like working on your weaknesses, or do you kind of double down on your strengths?
That's a good question. So I had lessons with Carter Arrington. You know Carter Arrington?
No.
He's a beautiful guitarist. He came here for Roth Academy to do a rhythm masterclass. And he just blew me away by his ability to feel time. I just loved it, right? He just, everything he does just sits, like he tunes, and he has better time than most people I know. It's just incredible.
Yeah.
And he just, you know, the way he plays, and the way he speaks on his instrument really connected with me. So after many years I have not, and so we got together, and he got me into recording whatever I do. He says, "Look, whatever you do, you make a video and you make an audio recording, and just listen back to it every single time. And then you make yourself little notes, and then it's kind of almost what you said. You obviously emphasize what's good, and you cut out what's bad. And so after a while, the good things become more. So in a way, it's that. And the other thing is, I try to not be backed down on all my weaknesses. I realized a long time ago that there is nobody that can do anything or everything. You know, anything the Lord can do. There's nobody can do everything. And so therefore, there's a couple of things that come easy to me, or easier. I guess I don't think easy is the right word, but they come easier to me than others. And those are the things I gravitate to, and then I work on them to refine them in a way. But then within that, I still, you know, you go down this rabbit hole, right? There's always another layer, and there's another layer. Then is my tone right? Is my dynamic right? Am I go and leave enough space? Am I leaving too much space? You know, there's all of this. Am I building this solo up properly? Is my voice leading right here in this harmony? Am I really sitting? Is this really a 16th going into a triplet, or is this kind of the first triplet a bit? You know, all of that. And I think this is something I constantly do and work on. And some bits I just have never mastered. I just need to work on. There's some bits I just can't play. You know, I want to, but I can't.
Okay. What do you think practice isn't?
It shouldn't be random and unfocused.
Okay.
Practice needs to be focused.
Okay.
That's the so I often pick something at a minute I'm working on my rhythm changes. Right. That comes sporadically in jazz, blues, or rhythm changes, or my 2-5-1s, because they're sort of the building blocks to a lot of the jazz playing I'm doing. And I just sort of, this is my focus. And so often I write down, I have a little practice sheet, or sometimes I don't have it up at the moment, but behind me I have a whiteboard, and I write down for myself in really simple bullet points of what I'm focusing on.
Yeah.
I.e., make the changes, or practice upbeat, or create your own time, that sort of thing. And I just write that, and that's my focus. And then everything I do has that anchor with it. So right now with rhythm changes is about really making the changes and looking at it, what do other people do? So right now I'm developing, new languages. I'm bored of what I used to do on it. And so I thought I need to restart this. So that's my focus. So it should be focused.
Okay. All right. And do you think there's anything that, I don't know if it pertains maybe to jazz guitar or just guitar in general, do you think there's anything that really isn't spoken about enough, or isn't really being talked about or taught, that you really think needs more time, time on it?
There are so many items. One of the big things I can think about is the fact that we don't really talk about the fact that we play music for music's sake very often, for the love of music. And everything else usually comes after that. It's not a sport, and it's to do with taste. So some people that we claim by their life that Eric Clapton is the best guitarist they've ever seen.
Yeah.
And who's to argue with those people? But this is for them. It gives to their life so much. And in the same way, some people have that same feeling about Aldo Meola or about John McLaughlin. And that's just as valid in a way. So I think we don't talk about the love and the emotional side of it very much, the deep connection we're having with it, because I think that is bigger than playing all the right notes. It's like because this can be a really negative place. If you are making this about bigger, better, higher, faster, it is an extremely negative place, and it can lead to all sorts of I've seen this in many musicians into very, very detrimental lifestyles. Where just hours of practice and then health issues come from tendinitis or carpal tunnel to mental issues where they kind of feel inadequate, imposter syndrome, all of the things we all battle from time to time, even with a good mindset.
Yeah.
And I think if we would talk a little bit more about this wholesome and what it does and where music sits, I think a lot more people would pick up an instrument because they feel more validated. And I think a lot of musicians would be happier on the gigs they're on, just playing the instruments. So we come in full circle to our conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I think listening to music and enjoying music for music's sake is where everything should start. And I don't think it should be, like you said, it shouldn't be a sport. It shouldn't be, I don't know, I don't know. It's just, I don't think Instagram and TikTok serves music the way that music should be served. It's everything.
It's a monkey show, isn't it? Yeah.
It's a monkey show.
Yeah.
It's just short little sound bites. 30 seconds. It's like fireworks. It's like everyone goes like, "Oh my god!" No,
it's
and
the equivalent of the bearded lady, isn't it? In The Greatest Showman, isn't it? That's what it is. It's the equivalent of staring at a bunch of misfits doing the craziest stuff. And I'm part of it, right? I'm not but I'm aware.
Yeah. But I think, I mean, certainly it's. I find it detrimental in terms of when I ask students, what kind of music do you listen to? What bands do you like? I get nothing. I don't listen to music, and they'll just their acquisition, let's say that of music is done through shorts, Instagram reels, and TikTok. Yes. Nobody's listening to music. Nobody's listening to albums, and it's really strange because music's never been as accessible as it is today.
Yes. Yes to all the things you say there. I think you pointed something out that was really important. It's music for the love of it, listening to it. That's where it all starts. I see it now. I'm sure you see this with the kids, with education. It's the first thing they do is grade. And that's immediately kind of a competition. It comes with the whole stress of having to perform in front of an adult, having to please somebody else with your skills and do exactly as you're told within that. While, I look at my kids, they're 9 and 10 years old. And half the time, my girl, she writes songs. She loves writing songs. Yeah. And she just hammers away in the piano, does stuff, or sings you a melody and does some lyrics with it. And it's fine. So you're exploring it. And my boy is the same, he sits down on the drum kit and plays a groove. And then he goes, "Hey, Dad, what do you think of this groove?" And he just loves it. He's into it. He loves it. And at that point, if you then turn around and go, "Yeah, but your wrist needs to be like this, your elbow needs to be in, and actually I think your snare is dragging." That's it. That's you just
how to dampen the fire, how to put the fire out. How
to put the fire out. And I think a lot of education does exactly that, where they're so formalized now. Everything needs to be in a box. Everything needs to be a PDF file that can be 100 times sold. Like a business model, right? Everything needs to be a business model. It loses that connection to music being an art form. And it involves a creative force, not just a technical force. Yeah. And we're focusing so deeply on the technical side. I'm not saying we don't need that, right? But I think it needs to be layers.
Yes, absolutely.
It's layers. Did you sort of get really serious about the guitar?
Oh, I didn't start playing until I was 17, so I was very late.
And then you from yourself, I'm sure you put on some hours.
I remember this vividly. When I was about 11 or 12, I asked my parents for a guitar. I was flicking through. I know in Germany, did you get the big catalogs that had the clothes, they had toys, they had furniture. They were like this thick. And so I was flicking through this catalog and I found a guitar and I said, "I'd like a guitar." And I think I said to my mum, and she went, "All right, okay, yeah." And she never mentioned it again, and I never mentioned it again. So she probably thought, "Let's see if he mentions it again," and I never did. And I always thought to myself, "Fuck, if I'd started at 12, where would I be now?" And then somebody pointed out to me, they said, "If you started at 12, you weren't listening to music, you weren't in love with music. There's a good chance that you'd have picked it up, you would have given it a go, you would have failed, and then you would have never gone back to it. So the fact that you started at 17, when you were in love with music and that's all you did, that's all you listened to, your life was just encompassing music. Then you picked up the instrument it was just like two little paths of a river just met, and then you were off. So yeah, I'm kind of glad that I started playing when I was in love with music.
I think that is a story you hear a lot where when you talk to professional players, there was a point in their life where they choose to be
Yeah.
involved.
Yeah.
And I think for me in education, all of this needs to be considered. I think in primary school education, for example, they don't do themselves any favors. Curriculum, a national curriculum that is based on 4 learning outcomes for basically 6 years of teaching, which are so vague that every school all over the country can interpret this whichever way they want to. And when you're then ending up having, a really good music lead, and that person interprets this in a very sensible way, that's great. But then you have next to it another good music lead who interprets it in a different way. So you have no standard, you have no idea of how, if that's helping students to actually get into playing instruments and making music. So if it's just education or for education's sake, just because you want to deliver something in order to tick a box, it becomes extremely off-putting, I think. And so a lot of kids by that point, when they reach that age, I think 12, 13 is probably a natural age where you start developing your own taste. I guess, when you're happy to kind of go and say, no, I'm not into what my parents are putting in front of me. I'm into my own stuff. Once you do that, I think you need to have then a positive attitude, and you have to have a lot of little things in your backpack that then allow you to engage in active music making. And I think if we'd focus on that, in early music education and in key stage music education, if we focus on simply the basic, the motor skills, the fun, the excitement, being exposed to loads of different music at a good level, at a high level, I think you're ending up with an uptake in music generally for people, not to be professional necessarily, but to have music in their life. And I think that'd be good. That'd be a good thing.
I think so. I mean, I teach at 3 primary schools. One of them, they take music very seriously. They've got a dance studio. There's 2 music rooms, and there are Perry teachers coming in every day doing drums. I mean, I go in, I teach guitar. They got brass teachers, flute, violin. They do extracurricular violin lessons, I think they call it. So year 4, for an entire year, they all get to go in and play violin and cello, and they're all in this giant orchestra, and that's great. And then there are other 2 schools, and I walked in and I say, where's the music room? Like, we don't have a music room. Like, where's the music teacher? We don't have a music teacher. Okay, well, where are your musical instruments? And they'll open a cupboard, and there's just like the shitty little music stands that are all, you can never fucking unfold them. They're all there just like broken, nothing works. There's no strings on the guitars. They're all just chucked. There's a drum kit that's got no skins. And you're like, well, this is fucking pathetic. And it's like, no wonder half the kids don't have any kind of musical education, because, like you said, it's so open to interpretation. It's so vague that almost schools are kind of getting away with not teaching music.
And they do. So even schools who are aware of this is always the first thing that goes. It's the number one thing that goes is, for any assembly, the music lessons are going to get skipped for that. There's ways around this, weirdly enough. So I'm in a minute involved in a project which is called Kidstruments, and they deliver primary school education on a modular, in a sort of almost like a one-click type of thing. So they say, okay, you can have your week's lesson here. Here's 12 tiles. That's what you need to do this week. And if you need 5 minutes of something, you just click on this tile, and you don't need to be any expert in it. It will lead you through it, will lead the class through it. And then, the next day you might continue. So you might not have a block of a lesson, but you can do it all throughout the week with teachers. They might be like the schools you're talking about. They might have no music leader. They might have no dedicated music teacher. And you can't blame them. A lot of people go, oh yeah, it's the teacher's fault, but it isn't. I mean, if you're studying, to be a teacher, you have to first and foremost make sure you know the primary subjects. You can't be an expert in all of them. It's impossible.
Yeah.
So and I think there are ways now of doing stuff in them. Kids instrument certainly is a great thing. I'm really proud of being involved in that. But it's something needs to be done. There needs to be a change in our thinking of how important this is. And I'm talking to the preaching to the choir, but it's
Yeah.
it's basically, if you think of motor skills development, you think of speech sensor development, you're thinking of confidence development, body confidence. You're
Yeah.
thinking of the fact that they be able to have another outlet for their emotions by just either playing, singing, dancing, clapping,
Yeah.
all of this. There's so many things that even outside just new knowledge.
Mm.
And they're there. And this is, I'm sure that's the same for you, man. When I have a shit day, I switch on my Gary Moore Blues in a Life, which I love since I'm 12 years old. I put my distortion pedal on, give me half an hour, and I'm a better man.
Yeah, yeah.
This is what it is, and it's a beautiful place to be. And at that point, I don't need to be a professional player. I just need to have something where I can get my, I can express myself in a way where I can't go stand in front of somebody and tell them exactly how I feel if I don't want to get arrested.
Yeah. Did you hear about or read about there was a school, I think it was in Bradford, I don't know, maybe 2017, 2018, that was ranked one of the lowest schools in the country. And they had a new head teacher come in, and all she did was insist that every class has an hour of music lessons every day. And the school went from like dog shit to just up it rose. Like, children's grades improved, mental health improved, teachers were happier, students were happier, and like, it was national news, and still, like, nobody's like twigged on. If we want to improve the school or improve the students, why don't we start introducing a bit more music?
You're saying this. You tell me, have you ever been on a concert or out with your mates and Angel by Robbie Williams comes on and you're there with tears running down your face, singing on top of your voice, holding your Desperados.
Yeah.
Whoever's next to you is your best friend forever. It just makes you feel great, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Music has that ability, and of course, for us, it goes deeper. Like I have that same emotion when I listen to Rachmaninoff or when I listen to Julian Lage or all of the guys I'm really into. It really makes me feel happy. I can, I'm a massive James Taylor fan. I love James Taylor, the singer-songwriter, American guy. And he has an album which is Landau on guitar.
Right.
And every time I'm listening to this album, like anywhere, it doesn't matter what mood I'm in. I'm singing on the top of my voice, and I cannot sing. In the car, like I'm literally, this can be heard villages away.
Yeah.
And I'm getting out of the and this is a universal thing. I think there's very few people that don't experience that, and I'm sure there's been studies and all sorts of things, but I don't think you need them. All you need is just put on a great song and get a bunch of people to jump around, and you have a good time, and you carry that positiveness a little bit around with you, and you radiate that positiveness a bit more towards the rest of the world. Therefore, it's not a bad thing, no matter what you call it. It's not. It can't be worse than it was before.
Yeah.
And that's very simple. It's a hard conversation to have sometimes for whatever reason.
Yeah. Very strange. Is there anything that you think in education or in music in general, maybe, well, let's say guitar in general, that just needs to stop?
Yes, I do think so. I think we, especially on the guitar, I'm not sure if I can say this out loud, but generally, I'm not a big fan of YouTube education, and I'm not a big fan
I've just got to go. There's someone at the door. Sorry.
Oh, you go.
All right. Oh, sorry about that.
No problem.
Plumber turned up. Didn't know he was turning up, but
that's a good thing, right? That's unusual for the turning up.
So you were saying things that need to stop. You're not a fan of YouTube education.
Yeah, or the YouTube style education, where even colleges now are doing that, where you have very often just disjointed lessons. They neither have there's no way, it's just like sound bites, snippets, anything that can be put. We talked about this earlier, into little boxes and then tick. It's one of the reasons why I got out of education in general, where I had to fight with people who made the final decision on what goes into the curriculum, and I had to fight with them over, let's take an example. Why would a student in an exam or in an assessment need to answer all 7 questions, all 7 notes in a major scale correctly, if we could just give them all a grade, let's say, for each one of them, or a point, and then therefore have a higher score? Things like this, where you kind of go, well, that's obviously not even a question we shouldn't be discussing, because it's like you're dialing the wrong phone number, you're getting out the wrong end. I mean, this is not a matter of having 4 numbers right and 3 wrong. You're still out at the wrong end. And so we had discussions like this, and it became so much like, okay, we're going to do scales, and then we're going to go and just run. Here's Dorian this week, then it's Phrygian this week, then it's Mixolydian this week. So what we're going to do, then we finish this, and then we run, I don't know, funk music over there. Yeah. And then we run over there, sight reading, where we do, a classical piece. And so everything is disjointed, everything is its own box, nothing fits together really, nothing is linear, nothing is diagonal, nothing is vertical, it's just boxes. Okay. And I think YouTube in itself is maybe just one example of this. I might be not quite right there, but I think any education where you're ending up just having a soundbite of something or somebody's short opinion on what you should be doing, I think is more unhelpful than helpful. Okay. And I think it helps, it leads to what we were talking earlier, often leads to us kind of thinking, hang on a second, I need to know all of those things, and then often leads us with, a rabbit hole and no connection to the real world. So
okay, how would you fix it?
Well, how would I fix it? That's a good question. Now, in education, on colleges, it's easy. Have people who want to be there and who are musicians.
When you say people, you mean students or teachers or both?
No. This is the people who make the curriculum.
Right. Okay.
I think the students in itself. I'm a big fan of everybody having access to education. Two different things to me. Yeah. I think everybody should have. Yeah. So that's a whole nother conversation about there's a whole nother rabbit hole. But let's just take this as read. Internet and everything. There should be a real case for saying, okay, if you're top 10, top 20 student, yeah, you're in the classroom, no problem at all. If you're not, you're on a screen and you don't ask questions at it. Okay. Because otherwise you're holding people back actively for something that has a time limit. Right? You go into the university, college, you have 2 or 3 years. That's your time limit. It's not an endless process. And there's also money that costs. You're ending up, paying this back and having accommodation fees, all sorts of things. So that's I'm going down a different road here. Yeah. So in order to fix this, you need to have people that actually really haven't been there, having done. People like yourself, like other people who are right now in the music industry working, and they can feed back of what's actually relevant. Yeah. Rather than educators, they very often haven't really had a crack, or haven't had their time in a past life doing something, and for them this is now their retirement plan. Yeah. And I've seen 2 things. One of them is where people move up from school education into college education, and then bring this into sort of college and university courses.
Sorry, hold on a second. Okay, sorry. All right, let's go.
Yes. No problem. Yeah. So basically, we're talking about how would you fix the sort of YouTube rabbit hole, or the idea that education doesn't actually really has a beginning or an end to it. Often, specifically guitar sort of education, where you kind of go, okay, you get almost like sort of something thrown at you, and you somehow have to then figure out for yourself where that all fits. Yeah. And I was saying that what I've seen a lot is where the people who are making the decisions are actually not people that should make the decisions for curriculum. There might be good administrators, they might come from schools, they might come from other places, but they shouldn't make the musical decision. And I've seen this a lot, that people who can get drowned out. I've seen, the funding game that's being played, where people kind of go, okay, we need to somehow next year have more people in, because we can access higher funding, but we can only grow by so many percentage because of how the government regulations work. So we just got to make sure that we do in every year the maximum growth we can do, because it's all business models now. And in those business models, very often, the students in itself get lost. And I think the big mistake we make, maybe that's where I should have started, is that we see education as business. And I think this is a massive, massive mistake. If you look at it as business, you are ending up trying to cater for the lowest common denominator to have the widest possible intake.
Yeah.
You cannot do it the other way around. Otherwise, you actually have the top bit becomes so expensive otherwise, or doing things for such a small number becomes so expensive that it's not a business. And that's why I'm personally thinking, if you do anything that's education, that's purely business focused, and there's not any sort of moral compass towards, okay, we're also feeding the next generation of inventors, musical inventors.
Yeah.
In that sense, they're shaping the next generation of sound taste. Ideally, we're if we don't do this, then we're actually not really fulfilling our role here. If that's not something that's in the forefront of the people who run in institutions, but the forefront is, okay, how do I get this classroom filled? And how do I make this work as a business and purely as a business? I think there's an issue. And I don't say the two things are mutually exclusive.
Yeah.
Right? You obviously need to do something, but starting at the point of business, I think, is the biggest problem. And it's the same with the YouTube clips, the same with everything. Here's fix your bebop chops in 15 minutes. Now, man,
you can't fix your bebop chops in 15 minutes.
You can't fix them in 15 years. Let me tell you that. It is just not possible. And doing that, and then you get one video like that, and then you have to go find something else, which somebody else tells you something else from a different angle, with a different approach. Then you have Barry Harris in the middle of all of this talking really beautifully, but again, nothing to lead in and out of this. And that's where, in the old days, good educators, they were gatekeepers.
Yeah.
You don't have a gatekeeper anymore now. And I think this is the biggest problem in all of this. A good educator was a gatekeeper. He would say to you, I know there's 1 million books out there. Here are the 3 you need to look at right now.
Yeah.
Don't look left, don't look right. You do this. And once we're here, then this door opens. And then now you need to look at this. Let's study this. Where are we at? Try this. Try to do this. Oh, you haven't quite fully understood. Reiterate. Okay, so now we're back at the same page. Here's the next door that opens.
Yeah.
And so that's a good gatekeeper. I remember a guitar teacher in Germany. He sort of realized that I'm getting more into sort of harmony and stuff. And I won't listen to this. And it was George Benson's Giblets Gravy.
Okay.
Absolutely loved the record. That was the first jazz record I listened to. Up until then, it was all Steve Vai, Satriani. It was, Extreme. I loved Deep Purple, loved Guns N' Roses, loved all of that. That was, Pearl Jam. I was really into grunge, loved all of that.
Yeah.
It was very much not guitar tape, no words spoken.
Yeah.
And I was the only idiot who had a massive car system in the back of my car, right? I built my own board with a subwoofer and all of this, listening to George Benson's Giblets Gravy. A full volume. It was brilliant. Yeah. So
that's cool.
That I'm missing. I think this is really, that's the essence. Maybe forget all my waffle beforehand.
Yeah.
I think the internet doesn't allow for gatekeepers anymore. It's a constant onslaught of the next thing. So the addictiveness of finding the next thing that keeps you engaged. And with that, the disappointment that you're always on the back foot, rather than, a calm, serene teaching environment where somebody just leads you at your speed, Tim needs and Pete needs.
Yeah.
I think that's a real big problem.
Yes, I know. I agree. There's so much to kind of unpack and digest in that. I agree that YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok, it's all it does. It seems to. I don't know about you. I feel bad when I sit and watch guitar players on Instagram and YouTube. Doesn't matter who they are. I watch it and I go, fucking hell, all right, I need to work on that. And then you scroll to the next thing and it'll be some like blazing country run. Like, right, my country playing that needs a bit of work. And then you scroll to the next thing. This is just this really fucking hip bebop line. You're like, right, I need to work on that. And you just get so overwhelming that you just don't focus on any one thing, and you're just taking tiny little bits of so many different things that you never ever actually grow. And somebody said something to me a couple of weeks ago. It said you just got to stop. You've got to stop. I can't remember the exact quote. You've got to stop jumping on these fads and these trends, and you have to start focusing on what music do you listen to that you love, and you need to start focusing and working on that, because that is you. Everything else is somebody else.
Wonderful person who ever said this. It's very true. And I think, when you get older, you are a little bit less susceptible to that.
Yeah.
And again, I think it comes back to what we're saying at the beginning about knowing yourself and being able to judge yourself, seeing the changes in you. Whereby when I was young, it was all about rock and metal, and it was all about practicing and scales and speed. I loved Steve Vai, and I remember reading for the first time his 12-hour and 3-hour practice routines. So 12 hours one day, 3 hours the next. I think I need to do this. Obviously, it's the only thing I need to do from now on is this.
Yeah.
And it's just crazy how you get caught up in that. And it was in all the guitar magazines and everywhere, like you say, in that sense, and that was great. But you get older and you kind of, after a while, just realize, okay, that was him. And I don't want to see him on a bebop gig with me.
No.
Do you know what I mean? I don't think that'd be his favorite thing, and I wouldn't even put it beyond him. He's an amazing player to play something decent, but I don't think he would rate himself on that gig the same way he does as a rock guitarist, because that's where he chooses to make his stand. I don't want to see Matheny on a traditional blues gig. It's just no language, isn't it? And it's just not something you just make up. And you're quite right. You have to find that your inner voice. But I agree. I've been there. You see somebody playing country, and you go, "Oh, no, I need to work on my country." I don't play country. I don't even listen to country music.
That was the other thing. Is this guy? It was Andy Wood. I don't know if you know Andy Wood.
Only by name. I don't know him personally.
Yeah, he was saying, like, okay, so you want to learn some country stuff? Who are your favorite country artists? What's your favorite country albums? If you're not listening to it, why the fuck are you learning it?
Yeah.
And I had that realization. I was having some lessons with Pete Callard, and
amazing player. Yes,
it's just like staggering, just amazing musician, great guy, lovely player, great teacher. And we were going through. He was like, "Well, okay, if you want to start playing jazz, we'll just go through some 2-5-1 lines." I was like, "Okay, let's start doing that." So he showed me all the triads and everything, and he's like, "Just keep running these triads. Here's a click, do it this. Here's short 2-5-1. Here's a long 2-5-1." And I came back about a month later, and I went, "I don't actually listen to jazz, and I'm struggling." And he was like, he stood up and he opened the door and went, "Get out."
and that is a good teacher, right? A good teacher does that.
And I said,
"This is not for you. Don't waste your time. It's your life."
Yeah. I mean, he didn't throw me out, but we went and worked on other things. But then, as I've gotten older, I've started to actually listen to jazz for pleasure, like the Joe Pass and Ella Fitzgerald albums. At the end of last year were just on constant repeat. I'm like, these are fucking amazing. I don't think Joe Pass has ever put a foot wrong. But when you start actually listening to it, that's the first step to learning whatever it is that you want to learn. Do you listen to it? Do you enjoy it? Then we'll start looking at some of the sounds that these guys make.
Yes. You're right. And is that right? My rock chops back up. Do I have a rock gig? I don't.
Yeah.
I do not have a rock gig. Like, people don't call me to go, "Pete, we need you to shred or in this extreme band." They just don't call me for that, for good reason.
Yeah.
It's and still there I am. At home spending hours kind of watching Paul Gilbert videos.
Yeah.
What am I doing? What am I doing here? And badly as well. It's not that I get anywhere with it. It's not like that after a while I go,
I got it.
Crack this bad boy now. No, I'm still shit at it. Months later.
Yeah, I think finding your voice and finding the music that speaks to you, and then using that as your strongest guide as to where learning takes you, I think is really important.
Yes.
Try not to be discouraged by TikTok and YouTube and Instagram reels.
Yes. And in that, it takes, again, a little bit of guidance, but sometimes we don't know how to learn. We look at all those things, but nobody really teaches you what learning really is.
Yeah.
and how you should approach it. I have this discussion constantly with my kids when they go on and say, I'm bad at something. My girl is particularly bad at this, or I'm not good at math.
Yeah.
I go, and then just you either know things or you don't. That's just not how it works.
Yeah.
Some things you just got to go and give a go, and you got to understand that they're a process. And then you don't get bogged down by the process, but you just get up every day and you do 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And then you assess 2 months down the line if you're good or bad at it.
Yeah.
And some things, I've done this, where I knew, okay, I need to get my finger picking back up, or specifically fingerstyle. I never learned fingerstyle as a young player.
Yeah.
I had no lessons till I was 17, 18, and then only a year and a half of lessons.
Yeah.
And so I have very, very poor technique, really. So I had to learn all of those things over the years. And fingerstyle I had to particularly learn. And that was something I became actually quite good at. I'm a really good hybrid picker, and I'm really good at sort of nylon string guitar playing without doing much at it. Not to a classical level, but there's something I thought, oh, there's a bit of gift there. Cool, but I only learned, you still have to spend 6 months of actually getting the basics right and not judging it.
Yeah.
At that point, you're not allowed to judge. So my thing is always with my kids is, if you start something, you finish that season, or you finish a cycle of something.
Yeah.
Right now, they set out to do grade 1 on the piano. You finish that cycle.
Yeah.
Once you've done that, you then make a decision if you like it or not. Once you achieved something.
Yeah.
And so how to learn how to make a good practice plan. A realistic practice plan, not writing 50 things on there and then hoping that you can somehow have a good outcome. Finding a focus and then sticking with that and being happy at the end of the year, looking back and going, yeah, I've dusted that part of the room really nicely. And now I can move on to another corner.
Yeah.
And, it's that sort of the long game afterwards. So there's still more to be discovered.
Yes. Yeah. I think not being scared of being shit at something is something that needs to be taught more to students. Like, you're going to suck at this and it's going to sound bad and it's probably not going to be that enjoyable, but that's okay. Because we all went through that. Like, we all struggled, like playing a C major chord up to a D major chord. It took me ages to get that, because you got to move all three fingers and they're all going in different directions, and it just took forever. And you just spend time on the struggle bus, and then eventually one day it kind of just clicks.
Yes.
Again,
beautiful expression. I steal that off you. The struggle bus. That's brilliant.
I think
it's true. Absolutely true.
I think the way certainly information is delivered to everybody these days, everything's instant. Like, we don't have to wait for anything. If you can order something online, it'll turn up tomorrow, maybe the next day. You want to watch a TV show? Well, there's all 25 episodes. You just binge them all. The idea of you've got to really sit down and struggle through this for 3 months is alien to so many people. And I say it to my students, I'm like, look, you're going to suck at this. It's going to be bad, but you just got to do it every day. Just turn up every day. Just do a couple of minutes. And eventually one day it'll click. And you'll just look back and go, holy shit, that's amazing. The other thing I was going to ask you is, do you like your own playing?
You know what? Yes.
Good.
I being on the guitar, there's some days when I sit up and I can't wait to make the first sound. There's like, you're in good shape and you play. And I absolutely love playing the guitar.
Yeah. Do you love your playing?
It doesn't mean that everything I do, I particularly love. And so a couple of things I got in a habit of. I got in a habit of recording myself during gigs, and I stopped doing that.
Okay.
Because I've learned the difference between an experience you're in the middle of and an experience you look at in hindsight.
Yeah.
And I've seen this also in other places, not just in myself, where you're in the middle of a concert and you're filming something, doing something, thinking, this is incredible. Or you're seeing the footage of it afterwards and thinking, oh, that actually doesn't translate as well on camera. But you don't have the atmosphere in the room. You don't caught up in that same emotion. You might not have the recording it on, so it just all sounds a bit flat. You have more drums on it than anything else, because all of this, you're actually not getting a true representation of the room. Therefore, you're not getting the same feedback. So long story short, I love playing, and I love the excited feeling when you play the good gig.
Yeah.
So all of this is true. But with that, obviously, I have to say that I've never walked away from a gig and thinking, okay, this is it. I've done it. I've now mastered the guitar.
Yeah.
Right. So those are two things. But then I also accept that as part of the journey.
Mm-hmm.
So I learned to be sort of a bit zen about the whole process.
Yeah.
Right. And I learned to talk myself back into the game. I don't know if you've ever done this. You play shit, but you get out of it.
Yeah.
But you get over your own hump. Go, come on, you're doing this for 30 years. How bad can this be?
Yeah.
How fucking bad can this be? I've been there, the mirror talk in the halftime going, okay, this is not going well, but there's a second half to come. Now you pull yourself together and you get out there.
Yeah.
I've done that for sure. The pep talk to yourself going, okay, this is not okay.
Yeah.
And it's not okay to be back down. You're a musician playing for 20 years now professionally, allowed to do a journey people can only dream of. There's 1-2% in the world that do something they can truly say they love. And what, you're gonna go home and cry over it? What are you, baby?
Yeah.
I have to. That talk sometimes comes, and I think it's important. So for that, it's not so much that I love every single note. So I'm grateful for getting good feedback from the band.
Yeah.
Your drummer shouts from the back, "Hey!"
Yeah, I think that's the mark. If the drummer says something, then you've done a good one.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So that's a really cool thing, and so I learned, and I learned that, and that's okay with me.
Yeah, I remember I was doing a gig. It was last year. I got a call on a Thursday to go and do a James Bond gig. And do you know the Cue the Music?
Yes.
Do you know those guys? I got a call on Thursday, and they said the gig's on a Sunday. And
tricky gig on the guitar.
Fucking hell, it was rough, man. I cancelled everything on Friday. Cancelled all my teaching.
To get through the music, yeah.
Just and I'm not the strongest reader. And I got the charts, got everything. I stayed up till like 2 a.m. Cancelled everything on Friday. Got a babysitter to come and watch the kids Friday night, and I just hammered the shit out of it. I got to the gig, and I was so nervous. The whole first half of the gig, I didn't enjoy it at all. I was so nervous, and I did that pep talk. And I was like, right, you've got to at least try and enjoy this. Otherwise, what's the point? Otherwise, it's a waste of a journey up to Bradford and back. You've wasted 2 days learning. And so I got onto the stage to do the second half. First song, I fuck up. Like I hit a real clanger, and the MD has a talk back, and he went, "Thanks, Tim. You can stop now." I was like, "Oh!" And I fell into this hole. I was like, "How am I going to get out?" And I kind of struck, and it was about midway through the second set. I just said, "Fuck it. I'm just going to play, even if I fuck up, I'm just going to play this one song, and I'm just going to put everything into it." And I did it, and we got to the end of the song, and the MD went, "Nice one, Tim." And the rest of the gig, I was like, "Fuck it, I'm just going to go and do it." And I just kind of stepped out of myself and just thought, it's not about what is written exactly on the page. Just use it as a fucking guide and do your own thing. And I enjoyed the second half of the second set. And I walked away like I'd done a good job. I was really proud of that.
I call this the tennis player's mindset. You're absolutely right. Where it's the next point that counts.
Yeah.
If you ever seen Federer against Nadal in the famous, was it the 2009, 2010 something Wimbledon final, maybe 2009?
Yeah.
Where Federer was down 2 sets and a tie break, like 3 points, 4 points down. It was just not good.
Yeah.
And he came back to win that.
Yeah.
One single shot after being hammered for an hour and a half by an amazing Nadal. And Federer at his height. Right?
Yeah.
And this is what it is. And it's the next note you play that counts, not the one you've just played.
Yeah.
There's nothing you can do, but we all do it. I mean, how many times have I done this?
Yeah.
You read along something, you play a bum note, and your eye hangs on that note.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are you going to do now about that note?
Yeah, because the band's going. They're on to bar 53.
They're off. And now you're making loads of mistakes after that. Because now you're worrying about this. You're worried that the guy next to you judges you. It's all in your head, right? Because half the time, I mean, how many times have you gone off a gig and you just played a killer solo and the drummer didn't even know there's a guitar solo in it?
Yeah.
Right? They're so busy, obviously everybody's busy making sure that their end is right first.
Yeah.
And half the time they don't really pay attention to every single bit of detail that goes on. But one wrong note, one little fret buzz, a pedal not pressed or the volume not quite up at the beginning of a tune, all the things that happen. And it ruins, you feel like a moron, isn't it? You feel like a failure. And you're amazing. Well done on you, for kind of keeping in the game.
Yeah.
Keeping in it, and kind of going, oh, fuck it, I'm getting something out of this.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm getting something. I'm not going to go to Birmingham or to Bradford.
Yeah.
Play a tricky gig on 2 days' notice, and then go and step down.
Yeah.
And make a bad job and beat myself up all the way in the car journey home. No.
Yeah. But it was okay. Fortunately, there was a sax player who was also depping, and he had an absolute car crash of a gig. That took a bit of heat off me. But
but bless his heart, he will feel the same, So bless his heart, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah. Anyway, dude, it was really lovely chatting to you. It's so good that we got to do this.
Tim, it's amazing. I think your podcast is absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
I love it. All different people I've seen on there. What you do is amazing, and I hope it's going to be growing into the #1 guitar podcast there is.
That's the goal, I guess. But yeah, there's a long road ahead. Yes. All right. Cool. Thank you. We'll speak soon.
Look, yeah, we speak soon. Yeah.
You too.